Hey guys, feel like I haven't talked to you for a while. Welcome to our new monthly tutorial. Let's talk about how to draw a dog this time. In our previous tutorial, I shared with you how I usually draw cats. Drawing dog is kind of similar because they're both quadruped mammals. Once you grasped the way to draw cats and dogs, you would be able to handle other quadruped mammals such as lions and tigers. Alright, without further ado, let's start it. So first of all, based on the reference, I will draw a sort of trapezoid shape to represent the head, then a line of action for the neck, the spine, and the tail. Then take a look at the skeleton picture to see where the shoulder girdles are, and then draw some short lines to represent the front thighs and the lower legs. I will also draw some circles to point out where the joints are. And for the back legs, it's the same way. But the back thighs and the back feet are supposed to be longer than the ones in the front. Alright, that's it. This is our guideline, isn't it simple? Now let's add the volume in. According to the reference, the dog's mouth is opened, so we need to extend the length of the head a little bit. We'll add the mouth and the tongue later together with other facial features after we're done adding volume. Don't worry if you're drawing all the forms accurately yet. There's no need to care about details in this step. I like to turn up the size of my brush a little bit and just draw thick lines in a kind of careless way to roughly get the forms I want. If you think some lines you made are useless, no need to erase them just yet. We'll do that later, because in my opinion, erasing too much will interrupt the drawing process. I also use the lasso tool a lot to adjust the position and the size of some forms. When you think there's nothing to add anymore, it's time to use your eraser to remove the unnecessary lines. You can also lower the opacity of this layer and create a new layer on top to make more accurate line work based on the previous rough sketch. Either way is fine. Okay, now I'm gonna sketch a corgi to help you review the process. You can draw with me together. First of all, draw the guideline, the head, the neck, and the spine, then the limbs. We're not using any anatomy picture here, but by observing the reference photo, we still can tell where the shoulder girdles and the thighs are. Corgis have short legs, so we should reduce the length of the limb guidelines. Then we add volume in. Now we're done with the line work. Let's start the coloring process. If you've watched my previous tutorials or have read the step-by-step sheet I posted before, you're probably quite familiar with how I color and shade. I usually change the layer mode of the line work layer to multiply and lower its opacity. Then I'll create several new layers and fill out the shapes with some solid colors. In this phase, you can use any hard edge brushes. The two I use the most often are Studio Pen, a default Procreate brush, and Gouache Clean Glaze from a brush pack I purchased online. You can find related information in the resource overview I pinned on top. Since I'm drawing a golden retriever, I picked an orange-brownish color as the base color. You can also pick the original color directly from the reference picture. Color blocking is just to establish a foundation for the following moves. To make our drawing more interesting, we need to add some textures and color variety. How many colors can you see from the reference? You may see different shades of orange-brown, right? And if you look at it more closely, you may also see some yellow tone and some red tone. That can be our color range, which means we can pick colors between yellow and red. For the brighter areas, I would use more yellowish tone. As you can see, I created a clipping mask to add new colors because, again, it's easier to make adjustments if there's anything needs to be modified later. The brush I'm using here is still Gouache Clean Glaze. I would say that this is probably my favorite brush, especially when drawing animals. The texture and edges created by this brush are quite similar to animal fur. I like to turn up the size a little bit and apply big strokes. If you don't feel comfortable to leave hard edges on, you can turn down opacity of the brush or use the blending tool to soften edges later. The reason I kept saying that don't be afraid to apply big size strokes and leave some hard edges on is because it can make our drawing look more dynamic. We don't want to just copy a picture, so to learn how to simplify the characters and objects we draw is really important. Forget about drawing everything you see from the reference photos and try not to focus too much on details. Instead, train yourself to see realistic objects as combinations of different 2D and 3D forms. That'll help us draw things in an artistic way. Alright, now I'm gonna create a multiply clipping mask for each layer and start shading. If you've read the shading theory sheet I posted before, you'll know that when picking colors for shading, the tone usually would be bluish. In real life, the shadows may look just gray to you, but when it comes to drawing, we usually pick yellowish color for highlights if the light source is the sun, and bluish color for the shadows. Since the light seems coming from the right, I'm going to apply the shadows on the left. According to reference, the shadows majorly locate under the ears, at the connections of the head and the neck, on the belly, on the left side of the limbs, as well as the connections between the limbs and the torso and between the torso and the tail. So we just need to apply big strokes on such areas and later on darken the connection parts even further. Since this one is a long-haired breed, there are also some slight light and dark changes caused by the fur. So we can gently apply some strokes on the torso, the tail, and the chest, because these parts have the most hair. Then we can create another clipping mask and set the layer mode to overlay to add highlights. Since the light source of this piece is the sun, the color I use here is going to be a light yellowish color. When drawing highlights, I like to apply hard edge strokes. The highlight should be placed on the nose, the neck, the spine, the tail, and the right side of the limbs. Seems like we're done with shading and adding highlights, which means we're almost done. But there's still some final touch that cannot be skipped. First, create a new layer and add some extra fur on the chest, the belly, the legs, and the tail. Secondly, erase some of the sketch lines. And last but not least, check where it needs to be further darkened. Darken these areas to make a clear definition of the character. Alright, we're done. It doesn't look that complicated, doesn't it? You may ask, well, there are so many dog breeds out there. They can look really different from each other. Yep, I know. So other than the Golden Retriever, I also drew a Corgi and a Chihuahua to showcase how to draw a medium-haired short-legged dog and a small-sized dog. The full-time process video has been uploaded as well. Check it out in the following post, and I will see you next month.